The year was 1884, and the rugged mountains and desert valleys of the New Mexico territory stretched endlessly beneath a brilliant blue sky. Life on the American frontier was never easy. Cowboys spent long days driving cattle across rough trails, while Apache families protected their villages and honored traditions passed down through generations. Although misunderstandings often existed between settlers and native tribes, there were also moments of courage and respect that brought people together. One warm afternoon, Ethan Brooks, a 30-year-old cowboy known throughout the territory for his honesty and calm nature, guided his horse along a narrow trail beside a fast-moving river. Ethan had been delivering supplies to a distant ranch and was eager to return home before nightfall. As he approached the riverbank, he suddenly heard frightened cries echoing through the canyon. Looking toward the rushing water, he spotted a young Apache boy struggling against the powerful current after slipping from a wet rock. Without pausing to consider the danger, Ethan threw aside his hat, tied his horse to a nearby tree, and rushed into the icy river. The current pushed against him with tremendous force, but he refused to give up. Fighting through the water, he reached the terrified child just as the boy began disappearing beneath the surface. Wrapping one strong arm around him, Ethan slowly made his way back toward the shore. Exhausted but determined, he finally climbed onto the riverbank with the boy safely in his arms. Before he could catch his breath, the sound of galloping horses surrounded him. A group of Apache warriors emerged from the hills, bows in hand, their expressions tense as they hurried toward the rescued child. Ethan calmly stepped back, expecting suspicion, but instead the warriors quickly embraced the boy, who was the beloved grandson of their respected chief. Rather than treating Ethan as an enemy, they thanked him with quiet nods and invited him to accompany them to their village. Nestled between towering cliffs and ancient cottonwood trees, the Apache village reflected generations of tradition and resilience. Families welcomed the rescued boy with joyful tears, while elders gathered to express gratitude to the stranger who had risked his own life. Ethan was brought before Chief Blackhawk, a wise and respected leader whose years of experience had earned him the admiration of every member of the tribe. The chief rose from his seat, placed a hand over his heart, and thanked Ethan for saving his grandson without asking for anything in return. According to Apache custom, such an act of courage deserved more than simple words of appreciation. Yet behind the chief's grateful smile rested a burden he had carried for many years. His eldest daughter, Naili, was kind, intelligent, and deeply respected within the tribe for her wisdom and gentle nature. She cared for children, gathered healing plants with the village elders, and helped preserve Apache traditions. However, years earlier, a group of cruel travelers had mocked her appearance during a trading gathering. Their thoughtless words wounded her deeply, causing her to withdraw from strangers and begin wearing a beautifully woven ceremonial veil whenever visitors entered the village. As time passed, stories about the mysterious veiled daughter spread across the frontier. Rumors replaced truth, and many men judged her without ever speaking to her. Several suitors arrived hoping to marry the chief's daughter for status or wealth, but each one left after hearing false tales or seeing her hidden face. None cared enough to discover the remarkable woman beneath the veil. Chief Blackhawk watched these disappointments with growing sadness, knowing his daughter's true beauty lived in her kindness, courage, and generous heart rather than in the opinions of strangers. He longed for someone who would value her character instead of listening to empty gossip. When he observed Ethan's willingness to risk his own life for a child he had never met, the chief believed he had finally found a man whose heart was guided by honor rather than appearance. That evening, as a great fire burned in the center of the village, tribal elders, warriors, women, and children gathered beneath the starlit New Mexico sky. Ethan stood respectfully before the chief, uncertain why the entire village had assembled. After thanking him once again for rescuing his grandson, Chief Blackhawk spoke in a calm but powerful voice that carried across the silent gathering. "You have shown the courage of a true warrior," he said. "I wish to repay your honor with trust. Marry my daughter Nayeli with respect and dignity, or leave our lands forever." A deep silence settled over the camp. Every eye turned toward Ethan, waiting to see whether he would refuse like the men before him. Ethan looked across the gathering and noticed a young woman standing quietly near the fire, her face hidden beneath a finely woven Apache veil embroidered with colorful beadwork. Though her features remained unseen, he noticed the kindness in her posture and the quiet strength reflected in her eyes. Instead of asking about her appearance or believing the whispers spreading through the crowd, Ethan removed his hat respectfully and replied, "A person's heart is worth far more than the stories told about them. I accept with honor." Gasps spread through the village as astonished whispers filled the night air. No one knew what would happen when the mysterious veil was finally lifted, but everyone sensed that the choice Ethan had made would change far more than his own future. The morning of the ceremony arrived beneath a clear blue sky, and the Apache village was filled with quiet excitement. Families gathered around the central fire while elders prepared the traditional blessing. Warriors stood proudly. In ceremonial clothing, children laughed as they scattered flower petals along the path, and women decorated the gathering place with woven blankets and handcrafted beadwork. Although the celebration honored an important union, many visitors from nearby settlements had come out of curiosity rather than goodwill. They whispered the same old rumors they had heard for years, convinced that the chief's daughter remained hidden because she was unattractive. Ethan Brooks ignored every word. He stood calmly beside Nayeli, who wore a beautifully crafted Apache ceremonial dress decorated with intricate beadwork, soft buckskin fringe, turquoise jewelry, and a finely woven veil covering her face. Instead of feeling nervous, Ethan smiled gently, reminding her that no rumor could ever define the person she truly was. Nayeli looked at him with grateful eyes, realizing that for the first time someone valued her heart before her appearance. As the ceremony began, Chief Blackhawk stepped forward and raised his hand for silence. He spoke about honor, trust, and the responsibility of building peace between people who often misunderstood one another. Then he turned toward Ethan and nodded. Following Apache tradition, Ethan slowly reached for the edge of Nayeli's ceremonial veil. The entire village watched without speaking. Even the wind seemed to grow still. With gentle hands and complete respect, Ethan lifted the woven veil from her face. A quiet gasp spread across the gathering. The people who had expected to see someone disfigured instead saw a young woman whose graceful smile, calm confidence, and kind eyes reflected remarkable beauty. More powerful than her appearance, however, was the dignity with which she had carried herself through years of cruel judgment. Many visitors lowered their heads in shame, realizing they had believed heartless rumors without ever seeking the truth. Ethan never looked surprised. He simply smiled warmly because he had already chosen to trust the woman behind the veil long before seeing her face. After the ceremony, Ethan and Nayeli began building their new life together at a ranch located near both the Apache village and the frontier settlements. They decided their home would be a place where respect mattered more than prejudice. Each morning they worked side by side. Ethan cared for horses, repaired fences, and trained young ranch hands, while Nayeli planted gardens filled with traditional healing herbs and helped anyone who came seeking medicine or comfort. She taught children the value of kindness, patience, and respect for nature, while Ethan encouraged neighboring cowboys to judge people by their actions rather than by stories or appearances. Slowly, friendships began forming between settlers and Apache families who had once avoided one another. Shared work, honest conversations, and acts of generosity replaced years of fear and misunderstanding. Months later, a severe drought struck the New Mexico territory. Rivers became shallow, grass disappeared, and both ranchers and Apache families worried about their livestock. Instead of allowing hardship to divide them, Ethan and Nayeli brought both communities together. Apache trackers guided ranchers to hidden springs deep within the mountains, while cowboys shared food, tools, and supplies with families whose crops had failed. Together, they repaired wells, protected herds, and ensured that no child or elder went hungry. Their cooperation saved countless lives and proved that compassion could accomplish far more than conflict ever could. Chief Black Hawk proudly watched as the people who had once lived with suspicion now worked side by side as friends. Years later, travelers crossing the New Mexico territory often stopped at Ethan and Nayeli's ranch, where they were welcomed with a warm meal, a safe place to rest, and stories of hope shared beside the evening fire. Visitors no longer remembered Nayeli as the mysterious veiled woman surrounded by rumors. Instead, she became known as a wise healer, a devoted wife, and a respected leader whose kindness touched everyone she met. Ethan was remembered not as the cowboy who accepted an unusual challenge, but as the man who looked beyond appearances when others refused to do so. Together they proved that true beauty is revealed through compassion, courage, and integrity. Their story was passed from one generation to the next across the American West, reminding everyone that lasting love is built not on outward appearances, but on trust, respect, and the strength of a good heart, of a